Okay, Mike, we're ready to go.
Well, welcome everybody to the LGBTQIA Intersectional Task Force. We are, of course, committee of the City of Salem Human Rights Commission. Before we got started tonight, I wanted to just say a couple of words and invite people, if they would like to say more during the member remarks and announcements later on. But many of us in the LGBTQIA plus community were quite upset today about the actions of Governor Abbott in Texas. The governor of Texas issued a statement today, essentially calling on the Department of Family Services there to go after any parent or caregiver who provides gender affirming care to trans or non-binary youth, go after them with charges of child abuse. And that kind of pointed rhetoric is very, very upsetting to people in our community. It may be very upsetting to many of us on this call, and particularly for people who have received gender affirming care in their life and know how life-saving that care is and how important it is to their health, happiness, and existence. So I wanted to just kind of put that out there in the context of our meeting tonight, because I think it might be on a lot of people's minds, and we do have time at the end during member remarks and announcements to talk more if people would like to say more about that. And that is why I'm also feeling a little bit somber tonight as we dive into our meeting, but we are doing interesting and important work for the city of Salem, and this work still matters. And I think that this is a moment where we can really see how creating a safe space in Salem kind of connects to some of the larger national issues that are going on, and why it's so important for our city to be safe. So just wanted to say that before we got started. And let's go ahead and do introductions. As I said, my name is Mike Waters. I'm the chair of this committee, and my pronouns are they and them. I'm a resident of Ward 7, and I'll go ahead and pass it to Kelsey.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Kelsey Murray. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of Ward 4 and a member of the Human Rights Commission. And I'm going to pass it to Amelia.
Hi, I'm Amelia Knight. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a resident of Zone 4. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission. I forgot to pass it. I'm so sorry. It's been a long day. I'd like to pass it to Miss Krista.
Oh. Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Krista Gallagher, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Ward 4, and I'm part of the Human Rights Commission as well. I will pass it to Kathy, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Ostrand-Ponch. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission. I also am from Ward 4, South Salem, and I will pass it to Byron.
Hey, thank you, Kathy, and good evening, everyone. My name is Byron Kimball. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a resident of Ward 5. I'm a community member of, I'm a member of the LGBTQI Task Force, and I will pass it on to Chikarico.
Thanks, Byron. My name is Tricarico, and to save the interpreter's wrist, my name sign is like this, T Italy. Yep, exactly. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I'm a resident of Ward 2 and a member of the Human Rights Commission. I think that's everyone on the task. It looks like there's a Jason listening in. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Jason Stats. Invitation was extended by Gretchen Bennett. My pronouns are him, he, and they. I am the original 1994 founder and current board chair of Rainbow Youth, Oregon's first queer youth support group in the state of Oregon and longest running. I'm also the vice chair of the West Salem Neighborhood Association. I participate in Edgewater Partners, which is also affiliated with the Salem Leadership Foundation. I live in Ward 1. I am the co-owner of Across the Street Vintage and Resale. My partner and I were the original instigators of Free Fridge because we decided to stick out a cupboard with free food. The next thing you know, Free Fridge formed right behind us, and we're thankful for them because now they come stock our Free Fridge outside of Across the Street Vintage and Resale. And I'm sure I do some other things. I do a lot of things, but those would be some of them. And I was really interested in the work that this group is doing. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Jason. I think, Gretchen, you are our final introduction.
Yes, hi. This is Gretchen Bennett, and I use she, her pronouns and am staff to the commission. Good evening.
All right. Next on our agenda is any public comment, and we have one member of the public here who's Jason. And Jason, you are welcome to participate in our discussion coming up about Safe Spaces program. But if you have a comment apart from that, prior to that, you're welcome to make comment now.
My only comment is that I'm excited for the work that's being done, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation. I think that the Safe Spaces program, being somebody who's travels a lot, I'm in San Francisco a lot, I'm in Seattle a lot. Those safe space programs are incredibly important. I feel that it certainly puts weight on the community to recognize that we need to have them and that people need to be aware of everybody else's safety outside of their own, and the different safety issues that come up for other human beings on the planet. So again, thank you, and I'll just kind of listen in, and if I can be of assistance or voice any comments along the way, then I will. I guess the one last thing that I would say is I'm really interested to see how the Salem Police Department and the police chief fall in line and get on board with this program. I'd like to see them be a leader in the program. I'd like the chief to officially endorse it publicly. I think that it needs to be a requirement of the program, and first an ask from this commission, and then if not, a demand to the city commissioners that the police department step up. And I think they will. But it was interesting to me, and I'll throw out there that reading the police department's new action plan, it was not inclusive of, it barely touches on the LGBTQIA plus community or the BIPOC community. It had a huge focus on the unhoused community, which to my understanding, every time I see that community, the majority of them are Caucasian, although that is the population in Salem. And Gretchen, I could be wrong in those statistics, but that's just what I see living downtown, and what I see the demographic in front of Arches and the Union Gospel Mission. But so I'm concerned that our current organizations that provide community safety are not really putting their best foot forward to address some of the issues in that current action plan. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And again, we welcome you as a guest. You're welcome to also participate in discussion. Gretchen, did we receive any other public comment?
No, we did not. I had anticipated perhaps some additional attendees. We had heard that perhaps some other people who own or manage spaces like businesses could be joining us. That Zoom link I've shared with a few, so you may see some guests arriving a little later. I'm not sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to our approval of minutes so that we can get into the meat of today's meeting. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at the minutes? And do we have anyone who'd like to make a motion to approve those?
This is Kelsey, and I move to approve the minutes from January.
This is Tricarico, and I will second that.
All right, all those in favor,
Aye.
say aye or raise a hand. Great. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved as written. So the majority of our discussion today is on the safe spaces implementation. And for that, I'm going to need to look to Gretchen to help structure the discussion a little bit, because I know you've had some conversations and I'm not sure, because I'm not on the HRC anymore, if you even talked about it at HRC. So you want to fill us in a little bit on where we're at?
This is Gretchen. Yes, I would be happy to. And of course, other HRC members, don't hesitate to jump in. Yes, Tricarico provided update at the last meeting, and that was good. What I have is a few updates for you from the last conversation, and then invitation. I know tonight, I think we were hoping to really benefit from Jason and Krista's attendance with some discussion. So I'll try to make updates brief, and then I can offer a few discussion questions if that would be helpful to jump in. First, I do want to appreciate Mike. You might have seen an email today. Mike drafted a Chapter 97 primer, which was one of the resources that the group had identified to be helpful. So I wanted to note that, and if there's time, we could come back perhaps and discuss the draft document, if Mike would be interested in that. Yeah. Great. Let's see. I also wanted to update everybody. We had considered having a web page live, and what I had hoped to have for this evening was a link that is visible to you all so that you could review and see. But what I learned is that where we are in our web page of change, I think I might have mentioned that the page is sunsetting and we're in the middle of moving to a new page. And it would apparently have been significant to build a page and then move the page, because they're trying to not have that happen at this window of time. So instead, what they said was that perhaps a news story that explains information coupled with a link where a person could click to sign up to receive information and to be notified about the program could be an interim step until we migrate over, which is supposed to be, I didn't write the date down, but we're within weeks, I understand, of that happening. And so I'm waiting on, I gave them all of our information, and I'm waiting on a draft story that I thought I could show to you all and then get feedback, and then we could move that way. So I wanted to provide you that update. Let's see. Another note I wanted to offer for discussion at some point in the conversation. I had the opportunity to be with a group of people who were gathered by the president of Chemeketa Community College around topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and was invited to share about the Human Rights Commission. And so I previewed the Safe Spaces program. And I got some interesting feedback that I wanted to share in. They spoke about something that they've been implementing there called a Safe Zone program, which sounds like it has some real similarities in objective. and one of the things that was important to them was how did they have pre-requirements of training prior to receiving the decal that they've designed. And they spoke to the importance of having a baseline of understanding of training by participants. They wanted to minimize maybe risk of people who sign up and get the decal, but maybe have variability in understanding. So I wanted to share that information. I also learned of their resource because they have a, they have a not for credit certification training opportunity. And so I thought that could be something that you all could consider to be added to the resource list as something that people could access. It's a training opportunity that either individuals can take or groups can take, and it can be tailored to the group, or people can take the content that they have. So it's kind of interesting. So I wanted to share that update and flag that question for discussion later about considering prereq. And then let's see. I have some updates from discussions with the Salem Public Arts Commission. And I noticed as I was signing in this evening, I see another note inviting some conversation. So I think what I have is partial, but learned of several resources that sound like it could be really helpful as we connect to artists from different communities. Like, for example, I learned of a group that's active locally called Artists Row, which is described as a collection of artists identifying as BIPOC, and they have an Instagram, and so that could be one pathway. There's a group out of Portland that started to work with Marion County that could be a resource, the Morpheus Youth Project. And then there's other suggestions of people to connect with, who would be good people to pass on the information. And then they have further thoughts about how to, help spread the word. I also was able to clarify that in the current budget cycle, so any time now that we'd be ready to access it, I would have $4,000 that would be available for the Safe Spaces program. I was able to secure that out of some current savings, and so wanted you to be aware of that budget update. I think those are the updates that I collected, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about any of those or just jump into maybe some discussion questions about the program overall.
I kind of want to talk about all of them, but I know that we have two special guests with Krista and Jason. I see that Krista has stepped away momentarily. Oh, there she is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. I'm glad you're back. But given that our guests that are here, I want to make sure that we hit on topics that are most relevant to them. And I think in particular, Krista, we wanted you to help us see if we had good resources and language around accessibility from what you've seen in the draft documents, and just to kind of get a sense for how you feel the program is progressing from that standpoint.
Oh, well, do you mean, are you talking about the public comments? What are you talking about?
In the Safe Spaces program description, we have some language related to accessibility. And then we also, in the Safe Spaces kind of outline for the resource packet that we would provide to businesses and organizations that signed up, there's some mention of potential resources around accessibility. And so one of the thoughts that we had, I know at our last meeting, one of the reasons we wanted to bring you in was to just kind of do a gut check around whether the language was resonating and whether and then maybe even suggestions of some resources that should be included in that resource packet.
Oh, I see. Thank you so much. Well, I read that the safe spaces paperwork and the document, and the language looked really good to me. I didn't fully review the resources packet. I'm going to have to take another look at that. So I could email Gretchen any information about resources that I think, but the language you've already written, it looks really good to me. So I'm hopeful that businesses, I don't know what exactly you mean by accessibility, but my goal is to help everybody keep it simple, and encourage what you're doing. Like, for example, in terms of advertisement or networking, make sure that, for instance, if there's a video, have it closed captions. If there's pictures on the internet, add a description so that everyone has access to whatever method you're producing something in.
So making sure that our materials about the program and anything we use to advertise the program has accessibility principles sort of built into it.
Yes, perfect.
Great. Did you have any other thoughts, Krista, this is kind of your first time coming to this meeting. So I was just curious if you had any other thoughts as you were reviewing the material, just sort of general thoughts.
Right now, I feel like I'm still learning and I'm catching up on what it is you're doing, and from what I've seen, it looks good, but I'll have to, after this meeting at some point, take another look. And if you wouldn't mind, I'll follow up with an email.
Absolutely.
Because I'd like to take some more time to think about it in a deeper way, and then I'll write something to Gretchen and you all about it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Krista. And thanks for being willing to be put on the spot.
Oh, that's absolutely fine.
And then our other guest here is Jason. And I'm really curious to hear from you, Jason, as a small business owner, when you look over the materials that we're proposing, what do you see as, kind of what parts of it are resonating with you, and maybe what are there parts of it that could be improved?
Yeah, the language of the Salem Safe Spaces project reads very well. I think it's inclusive. What I'm curious to know about is the future marketing of it. I mean, I'm ready to put a sticker up in 2 different storefronts in Salem, Oregon. So, it's interesting to hear possibility of a website. That interests me, to potentially see a list of businesses that are participating, and that would also benefit from participating. I think it's a good give. But I say the work that you've done here is fantastic. For me, it's about implementation and marketing of the program. And that's, I guess, what I'm really interested in seeing. And I'm also really interested in seeing, where does city council fall into play with the support of this, including the mayor, and then of course the police department. I think that's, again, I feel very strongly about that, and I think that that's really important. And I just, however I can help, or be a voice. I imagine everybody here is much nicer than I am about things.
I don't know how nice we are. We're a pretty nice group though. I think marketing is a really important piece of it. And we had talked a bit about the Downtown Business Association. We had talked about the Salem Chamber. I see, Gretchen, you have your hand up. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts already right out the gate.
Oh, thanks. I don't want to lose your train of thought, Mike, on that. I was going to comment quickly on council and please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I need an update or education there. I
Yes,
want to know
sir.
how they're involved.
Yes, sir. Well, generally, this is within the scope or work of the commission. It was interpreted that within Chapter 8 and 97, certainly like perhaps formal approval wasn't necessary. That being said, we expect Monday evening, they'll be able to hear a lot more about it. Chair Angelo Arredondo, the chair of the Human Rights Commission, is planning on providing a bit of comment and update, kind of reflecting on the year 2021 and looking ahead to 2022. And I know plans to talk about the Safe Spaces program and the hopes the commission has for this partnership and implementation in the new year. So I think that'll be a natural springboard for mayor and council to comment or participate as they would want to. The other comment I wanted to share is, interestingly, when the discussion was first emerging, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, you had brought this vision and concept forward as something on your mind. And then I think when it was new in the discussion, as people began to explore, Salem Police Department brought an example of a safe spaces program from Seattle for the commission's thought and consideration. And then the commission, I won't speak for the commission, but wanted to move in a different direction. So we began, I think, with that place of Seattle and SPD as an example. So just wanted to offer those updates.
Yeah, that's right. The Seattle example, which most of you on the task force know, but mainly for Jason's benefit and other visitors, the Seattle example was a very focused program on getting people to report hate crimes. And so if you are a designated safe space by the city police in Seattle, you receive information specific to just reporting hate crimes. And while we thought that was an important part to include in a program, we also recognized that reporting of crimes is not always the only resolution, and it's not necessarily what makes people feel safe in a space, and that we needed people who participated in our Safe Spaces program to make a stronger commitment to creating safety within their walls. So we ultimately moved in a different direction, but that was the example that we were able to receive from the police department.
I have a question kind of about connecting to the police. This is Trigerico, sorry. So how do we get the police more involved? Because I went to the NAACP meeting where the police announced that the city had hired a DEI person, right? And it was a little bit strange because there were questions around like, okay, like, did you use an equity lens? And they were like, no, we don't have one. And I was kind of like, huh? Yeah, you do. I've heard it. So I don't know what happened there. Because for those guests, we had Dr. Brown write this really awesome equity lens for us, working with the group. And both the police and a member of the Salem DEI Council, is that a thing, Gretchen? We're completely unaware. And so I want to make sure that this time around, we involve some people maybe earlier in the process, or just make sure that there's more follow through. Like, I get that our role as commissioners is pretty far removed from telling the deputy chief what to do with his life, but I do want to make sure that we are emphasizing that as strongly and enthusiastically as we can, because I feel like there's some kind of disconnect or maybe some resistance, and I'd really like to figure out what that is and make sure that this effort does not go unnoticed.
This is Gretchen. Thank you. Let me see. As I think about that, first of all, to go back to your first question, I would feel confident that Salem Police Department would be happy if you want for them to participate. As you know, we have a liaison at the full commission meetings, and I think if their presence was desired at our subcommittee or task force meetings, I think all we have to do is ask. It's, you know, been my experience that they've been ready, willing, and able to be at the table. So if just say the word if you'd like, and we can ask Debbie or someone else from the department if they would be available to help us with building out this process, if you would like that. I'll pause there and see if you'd like me to extend that invite or if you all would like to.
Well, full disclosure, I don't really want them helping me with the process. I want them to actually like participate as businesses, like Jason was mentioning. Because I've had a lot of meetings separately outside of my role as an HRC member, as a community member with the police, to try to get them on board with some stuff. And I'm just going to be brutally honest, it's not going well. They're not listening. So I know that, you know, coming in aggressively, because Jason, I'm on team not so nice with you, doesn't work. So I really want to try to invite cooperation from the beginning. So whenever we get ready to launch this, I want to get involved as soon as possible with the police and really make our expectations clear. And I also want to be really public about it, because I want people to know that we are trying to move the needle there, and that it's kind of the lack of the response on their part that's the problem, not the efforts in the city, because the city is making some efforts.
Okay, thank you. And then on the other part around the equity lens, the communication, so I guess just to go back and share maybe how it was shared and its status, back after the commission received and adopted the equity lens, which is, as Tricarico accurately shared, was developed by them and by Dr. Brown and others who weighed in on that conversation. We provided that in a document that was also included a cover letter and the equity asks, and then there was an attachment of the input that had been received from the community. So it was this packaged document that included the equity lens as part of that. And that was sent out to our mayor and to our city council, and also to different people in the city, like at the department director level. And then I also received some other requests or suggestions for others who might find the document and the information helpful. And so we did that distribution. We don't have authority at the Human Rights Commission to require its use in all circumstances. So I can't verify or vouch for it's always used in every process, but we certainly tried to make it available and make people aware of it as a resource or as an offering of something that could be really helpful as everyone implements activities, questions, policy ideas, etc. So I'd be happy to follow up. If there were particular people, I can certainly circle back over to police and make sure that they're aware of the document and see if I can't try to see what might be gumming up or what the challenge might be.
This is Mike. I saw Jason's hand a moment ago.
You know, I think it might have already been stated here. Thanks, Mike. Curious to know, you know, I'm definitely for cooperation and inclusion. I'm curious to know how have you established what your asks are from different organizations? Like the clear ask, like what do we want from the police department? What do we want from city council in regards to this particular project? What would we like to see from the Chamber of Commerce? Are we just asking them to, you know, one of the things, I participate on a charter school board, And there's been, over the course of the last couple of years, there's been a lot of bias training, inclusion training, and it's great to have a policy, a piece of paper, and trainings for everybody, but it is what we do and the actions that we take and the actions that the organizations around us take to support the initiatives that is actually what matters. We can have an equity and inclusion statement. We can have a safe project space, safe spaces program that people participate in. But it is the clear actionable items that occur beyond that that are actually what's really important. The language is just a very surface step. And so when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, especially on a school board, it's like, okay, well, we have that, but when we have an open position, are we reaching out outside of our community into other communities for hiring people who represent our student body and making sure that we're filling those positions adequately so that the student body feels represented? Again, I go back to what are the clear asks of the police department? For me, it's if you have the chief of police and the mayor get up publicly and in a press release, and you ask the city council to pass a resolution during council meeting, then that's an action. That's an actionable item. That's an ask to publicly approve this and say the city gets behind this. The people who and I hate the word enforce, but the people who should be setting the example of what safety is, which is our police department. Again, what is the ask of the actionable items that you need from them to make sure that this program is successful and that it's not just a document and stickers on and a website. Anyhow, I'll get off my little soapbox there, but it's something to think about. And I don't know what those items are for this committee or task force, but just things to think about. And again, I haven't watched all of the meetings, so I'm not completely up to speed. I just got a document and an invitation, and so I'm just here to support however I can.
Thank you, Jason. This is Mike, and I really appreciate everything that you're raising, because I think we haven't gotten to that place yet of determining what our specific asks are for our city agencies, of which the police is one. We did have some early discussion with the Parks Department because we at one of our HRC meetings heard from a community member who had experienced harassment at a park. And then we also heard from a community member when we first were shopping around the Safe Spaces program, who said, what about the parks? Is there going to be any sort of visibility to making our parks safer? So I think it's a larger question, not just involving the police and city council, but it's the parks and the library. And if those organizations are going to sign on similar to how businesses sign on to this program, and if it's officially endorsed by, for example, city council, I actually expect their level of commitment should be a bit higher than our community members, because they have to be exemplary in their participation of the program and in their championship of the program. So your coming to this meeting and sharing that with us is really, really valuable, because we have not gotten to that stage yet, but that has been sort of bubbling in the background in terms of how do we have more support from our public agencies. And I've done a lot of talking, but I want to make sure I pass around to others on the task force. But have any of you, I'm looking at folks like Byron and Kelsey and Kathy and Amelia, have any of you given thought to this sort of issue of public support for safe spaces, and do you think some of the things that we've talking about, is that resonating with you, that we need to get some of these public agencies on board? And then secondly, are there things we haven't thought of in this area?
This is Kelsey. I honestly had not thought of it like super much. And I think that's just privilege. But I think it's really important to have buy-in from important city officials and organizations, not only to give legitimacy, but to move towards change. I like the direction that we're talking about going, and kind of honing in those details of how are we going to get that buy-in and who, and what that looks like.
Byron, you're on mute.
It would appear I am. All right. Anyway, I'm going to echo, Mike and Casey. This is something that we've touched upon previously. Namely, how do we enforce perceived violations to the safe space program, like whether that's failure to respect safety of residents who come into a place of business or a community space, or perceived lack of, I don't want to say effort on this part, but anyway, so it is there. I think something that has been something that we've been, that I for one would like to see more movement on is discussion of enforcement, in lack of a better term. But we definitely agree regarding buy-in from various city departments, because overall, this, I think just of the very nature of safe spaces, we need coordinated understanding, whether that's from public works all the way up to environmental, to the library, etc. So definitely appreciate you bringing it back to the fold, Jason. And I would definitely like that to be an item considered in a future meeting, just to consider what are our mechanisms for responding. Especially if this is, and I guess maybe this is a point too that we've sort of been touching on is, if a city department, city-owned facility is found to be a place that members feel unsafe in, or I think for discussion on if there's a specific response to that is warranted.
This is Mike. Do you mean, Byron, do you mean that that there might be a different approach if this is found within a city? Because obviously with our business, we do have an enforcement section that sort of allows us to, through our HRC processes, sort of kick somebody out of the program, right? With the city, it's more challenging. Are we going to kick the city of Salem out of its own program if there's found to be a violation? So that I think, is that kind of what you're getting at a little bit?
That's exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
This is Krista. I'd like to say something. And I apologize. I guess I'm maybe a little bit, when you're talking about confused, the Safe Space Project, for some reason, I was thinking that it was focusing on businesses. that are actually in the Salem city, stores, restaurants, etc., and that they would have a decal for their business, that that they follow a specific list of items, requirements, or whatever that is for safe spaces. But are you also meaning? I mean, it sounds like what you're saying, like in the community-owned agencies as well, or are you just talking about businesses? I just need a little clarification on that.
This is Amelia Knight. I also would like to echo this question because my dream or envision of safe spaces would also include parks and other public spaces. So thank you for bringing that up.
This is Mike, and Krista, that is the exact discussion that we're having, and that we've had kind of a couple of times throughout this process. And I think that the committee's consensus all along has been that our public spaces need to be declared safe as well, and that we need the commitment from the city of Salem and from the police in order to make that a reality. And I'm really intrigued by Byron's comments a few minutes ago, because I do think that the bar that those public spaces have to set is a little bit different and a little bit higher in some ways, because the city is the sponsor of this program. So if the city is having real challenges in this area, then it's going to be harder to really view the program as valid. And I think it's incredibly important that the program be seen as an upstanding program within the city. So that is the exact conversation we've been having, though, Krista and Amelia. I appreciate that.
This is Krista. Thank you so much for clarification.
Kathy, I don't want to pick on anybody, but I'm
No, it's
curious
okay.
your thoughts.
I was waiting patiently. I didn't want to interrupt anybody. We've talked about having parks and public spaces participate, but I do think, I appreciate Jason's comments so much. I think we need to build that into the implementation, that the city and those public spaces not only buy into it, but actively support and participate in it, because really that's important. If you don't feel safe at a city facility, where that kind of defeats the purpose, I think, of what we're trying to get to. So maybe we want to build that into our plan, our implementation plan too, is to take those steps to make sure that the city is on board and the police department, and do what we need to do to bring them up to speed and make that request.
This is Tricarico. I'm also liking the suggestion that we have pre-requirements, and I think that could be a good gateway into getting the city and the police kind of on the same page, right? And then maybe we even have, I'm just totally spitballing here, maybe we even have like some additional steps for remediation where, if it's a public entity and it's reported that they're, in violation of this program, then maybe there's some additional things that we would require, like, a consulting firm coming in and, doing this additional work to make sure that the concerns brought up are addressed. And I know this is possible because they just did it at my job, and it was very public, and it was really hard for a lot of my coworkers to see some of this kind of not so great stuff come to light. But as someone new to the organization, it was like, yeah, this is what needs to happen. This is what we need to do in order to solve these problems. And so I feel, I'm not a fan of blaming and shaming people, but I also feel that if you're in the public sector, what you're doing is in the public eye, whether you like it or not. And part of this program could be kind of shedding a light on that, but also in a way that says, hey, this is the problem. This is how we solve it. Here's our recommendations. I don't know, maybe I'm getting too lofty, but I do feel like there's an avenue for that.
I really like that idea. Sorry, this is Amelia Knight. I really like that idea, Tricarico. I want to know, what avenues we could explore where we could do something like this and also have buy-in with like the police department and cooperation. That's what I'm curious about.
This is Mike, and I'm hearing a lot of consensus around the importance of our public buy-in and cooperation and enthusiasm behind the program. I want to turn to Gretchen and put Gretchen on the spot just a little bit around how do we kind of stage those conversations and start moving in that direction to make sure that the city is fully prepared for us to implement this program.
Thank you. That's this is Gretchen. That's what I was just thinking about. And I'll certainly need to put some more thought into that question, but as you've spoken at previous meetings, all along understood the vision for the city as well as other public benefit organizations being eligible to participate, you know, and more than that, you know, of course, it being our program, of course, you know, that we would be a part of it. What I'm thinking about kind of comes back to something that Jason said earlier about what precisely are the asks, you know, because I don't think I fully answered Tricarico's question earlier. We do have something internally, a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and that might have been what was being referenced. I can't think of anything called council, but there's a DEI committee, for example. And so they have a framework and goals and a structure and training activities the city has done some resolutions, you know, as you all know, over the years. And so I think that as I imagine the city trying to understand participation, they would probably naturally want to compare and contrast what would be new or different about the safe spaces commitment, you know, as compared to our initiatives that are underway. And do we have the capacity? We have a number of initiatives underway right now. Do we have the capacity, if there's additional things here, can we do both? Or, you know, what would that be doable for us? And what would that mean? And it gets me thinking, it might be the same if I'm a business owner or a manager of a nonprofit organization. There may be initiatives underway, and probably people will try to assimilate, how does this fit with what we're working on? And, you know, is this complementary? Is this new or different? And if it's new or different, if it's an ad, will we be capable? Will we have the capacity? What kind of supports will we need? Those are the kinds of questions. So I think it probably comes down to the suggestion to be really specific and clear about what are we looking for? What does it mean to sign up and say yes, so that people could understand the question. So getting clearer on that, and maybe if there are prerequisites that are interested to be required, what would that look like? That could be really important. So just thinking, that's where my mind is. Because I mean, certainly naturally it will be bringing it forward and asking for participation, you know.
This is Mike, and I want to make sure that I know Jason has his hand up, so I want to make sure that Jason gets a chance to make a comment. I'm also aware that we're about 6 minutes till the hour, and I believe you have a meeting following this. Is that right? For ACT, you kept the same meeting time. So I think what we can do tonight is take Jason's comment. I think that we should all be thinking about what our asks are from our city agencies over the next month or so, and bring that back to our next discussion. But Jason, want to give you a chance to make a comment.
Yeah, I'll try and be very brief here. But some of those asks, but you know, Byron, you were mentioning, how do we, you know, obviously we don't want to be in a position of shaming people. We do want to be in a position of holding people accountable, just like the health department holds restaurants accountable. It's very interesting. You go to different cities, it's like pass or fail, and they have to put it up on their window. You know, in some cities, it's a straight A, B, C, D, or F. and they're required to put it up on their window. I think when you're talking about the agencies involved, parks, City of Salem, council, the police department, one of those asks should be, well, if you violate this program, what should we do about it? I mean, what would you expect should be done about it? You know, if somebody violated your program or your law or your house, what would you want done? And I say that that's a really powerful question. If phrased correctly, put back into the lap of the person that would be responsible for receiving the consequences of their actions or inactions. But so just something to think about there as you're kind of formulating and working with these different organizations and different parts of city. So.
Thank you. That was an excellent comment. Do we have any comments to wrap it up? We also have member remarks and announcements period at the end. Any further comments on safe spaces? Any further member remarks and announcements?
Yeah, I actually do, as a matter of fact. So regrettably and unfortunately, this will actually be my last month with the task force. I just have some family and medical commitments on my end that are going to take up like a lot of my energy, and I won't be able to commit the amount of time and effort that I feel the task force rightfully deserves. And so, but, I just want to thank all of you for the past several years, and several years, gosh, leadership that we've shown in that time, including revisions to Chapter 97, the updated restroom signage across city property, and of course, in a few months, fingers crossed, the Safe Spaces program. So, definitely value all of you and the time that I've spent, on this task force. So thank you. And I, of course, always welcome folks connecting, reaching out, and look forward to hopefully joining back in the next year or so.
Byron, thank you so much for everything over the years. It has been awesome to have you on this task force, and just really, really appreciate you, and go do what you need to do. And I really do hope you come back.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Byron, so much. For those of you who don't know, Byron designed our posters for Trans Day of Remembrance and was just a huge part of that event. So we are so grateful that you participated, as well as all the work you've done. Yes, please take care of yourself and your family, and you are always welcome back whenever you're ready.
This is Krista. Oh, sorry. I thought you had your hand up. Sorry, it wasn't Krista. Oh, Krista said, I did raise my hand, but then I just wanted to make sure that Byron was finished talking first. That's all. Well, our time is almost out, and I want to thank you very much for having me here tonight. I learned a lot, and if you wouldn't mind, I'd be interested in joining again. I'm really interested in the Safe Spaces project and other things that you're doing as well.
This is Mike. Thank you, Krista, for being here. So wonderful to see you. I miss my HRC peeps. Great
Yes.
to see many of you on this task force. And we are at 7. I know there's another meeting coming up. I'm sorry you didn't get a bathroom break for those of you on ACT, but we will see you next month. Take care, everyone.